So I just want to welcome everyone. This is our 10th little episode like this with Tecumseh Talks. The whole idea is that we want to make sure we take this opportunity and try to focus on positive people and focus on the positive messages we can during this unfortunate time. I think we take this as an opportunity to connect. We're very grateful today that one of our homegrown stars and most up and coming has given the time back to the community. I know, Frankie, every time you're back here, you're always giving and always willing to engage with the community. So without further ado, I'm just going to introduce Gianfranco Facchineri, known to a lot of you guys as Frankie. Just signed his first pro contract with the Vancouver Whitecaps, and I will turn it over to you, Frankie, because I know you're going to kind of tell your story. So I don't need to do a long bio. So it's all you, my friend. Welcome, and thank you very much for giving the time to these kids.
Yeah, of course. First and foremost, thank you guys so much for having me. I love doing this stuff. I know, as you said, I like to come back to, the community and help. And yeah, I love the game and love being involved. So the fact that you guys, give me the opportunities to be involved and to, kind of connect with, up and coming players from the city, it's great. And I love it. So thank you guys for the opportunity. And, thank you for giving me your time to listen. So I think the point of this was, so I could tell you guys my story and kind of how I became to get where I am right now, which is, a professional footballer. There's a long road ahead and there's a lot more for me to do. But my first goal was to become a professional. I realized that in January. So yeah, so I was kind of going to tell you guys my story of how I got there. So first things first, I'll start at the very, very beginning of my footballing career. I started playing at Chicharro Club. I played house league there for a couple years, and then I played 1 or 2 years of travel from there. So I started at Chicharro, and then I moved to play for the Windsor FC Nationals, which was coached by Dimitri Vakratsis, and Otis Vakratsis, and who's his brother, and a bunch of other coaches helped with that team as well. So then I started from there, and that team was kind of where I really fell in love with the game. I loved the game Chicharro, but then when I joined Windsor FC Nationals, I have lifelong friends. All my best friends were on that team, and that's kind of where I fell in love with the game and where I started, really developing and thinking this is something that I want to do. So Coach Dimitri was my biggest supporter and biggest critic, short of my parents. So he was always like a second dad to me on the soccer field, and he was beyond helpful in everything. And he was the first one who, I think, short of my dad, who said, this kid can do some things. So without his support, I wouldn't really have gotten here. So I played with the Windsor FC Nationals. We became an all-star team at one point, and we used to play games in the States before we had all these amazing platforms through Windsor, that the way they do now, where, kids can go play games in the States, or they can have all these great clubs here. Before we did that, we kind of had to go do it on our own. So I remember Coach Dimitri, he used to always organize that stuff for us to go and, get tournaments and games. And it was a lot harder for us to find games back then than I think it is for, you guys now. So we used to do that. And yeah, and just another thing about that is we didn't have all the same opportunities. I know that it sounds crazy, but I'm 18 now. I just turned 18. This was only, 5, 6, 7 years ago, but we didn't have the same pathways and the same kind of, everything that's at your guys' fingertips, like that you guys have now. We didn't have that. So we had to go find games. We had to go, we had to sacrifice quite a bit. Our weekends were always, we travel here and there to go get games, where you guys don't have to do that to find high level competition. So you guys are in a really fortunate situation. So then I played for Windsor FC Nationals for 5 years. I was with him. So 5 years from there. And then at the end of that time, I moved to a club called Vardar, which is a club in the States. I played for the Vardar that played for the in the USSDA. I didn't play for the Vardar, that Windsor Vardar. That wasn't a thing when I had gone over. So I moved to I moved to the Vardar in the States, had 3 seasons there, and then moved to the Vancouver Whitecaps. And then obviously there was a lot that happened within there. So my time with Vardar, I spent playing in the USSDA, which is US Soccer Development Academy, which actually is disbanded about a week and a half ago. So that's not even a league anymore. So they've done some things where they're going to add something for the MLS teams, which won't really affect you guys. But that was something that was big that happened to a lot of us that played in that academy system. So I played there for 3 years. And once I had moved to Vardar, I had started getting some opportunities to go play for the provincial team, Now, the provincial team, for those of you that don't know, is the Ontario provincial team, where it tries to find all the best non-academy players that play in Ontario or anywhere else, and they try and bring them together, and they'll go and play 3 games against Quebec. What they used to do, they used to have them play against Nova Scotia and Newfoundland, but the problem is the games would end 6-7-0 for Ontario, so it was just Ontario versus Quebec. So I made that team at 14. I was the captain of that team when I was 14, and then once again at 15, I went back again and was the captain of the team at 15 again. Once I was 16, I had already moved to Vancouver, so I didn't go and play for that team because I wasn't allowed at that point in time because I was with an academy. And yeah, so from the provincial team, the big reason to go to the provincial team was to try and get on the Canadian national team. And to get on the Canadian national team is obviously, it's the highest honor that a Canadian can have. And at this point in time, I had gone to a camp when I was 14 for the U15 Canadian national team. And this was my kind of biggest setback in the game up until that point. I had never really faced any setbacks or any hardships. I was not necessarily always the greatest player on the team or the best, but I was always an important player on the team. So what that did come from, I was a center back. So when I was thrust in the center back position, I had to take on a leadership role. And I have been a captain on every single team I've been on since the time I was 13 or 14 to now. I've captained every team I've been on. And that comes with a position, but it also, comes with, you have to take on a certain role once you're a center back. You got to lead the team from the back. So being a captain is kind of part of my story, and I've always taken a leadership role, and I've always enjoyed a leadership role. So going back to the kind of the national team, I went there when I was 14 and tried out for the U15 team. I went to a camp in Toronto, and I didn't make the team. It was myself and another player named Ralph Priza who were the only 2 younger kids that went, and another kid from Quebec that was on the Quebec provincial team that went. And I was the only one of the younger age players that didn't actually make the team. And I thought I had showed really well, and I thought I had played really well. And I was, kind of a bit arrogant and naive in the sense that I thought, well, I'm the provincial team captain. I should be on this team. I should be here. And that was a big blow when I didn't make that team. And whether it should have been or not, I took that to heart. And it was at that point in time where I kind of gained a bit of a chip on my shoulder towards not necessarily Canadian soccer, but towards, I never wanted to feel that again. I never wanted to feel that kind of disappointment where something I wanted so badly, I wanted to represent my country so badly, and it didn't get it. So that kind of, sparked a fire in me. And from that moment on, I kind of believe that was the turning point in my life where I thought, okay, it's going to take more than just training with your team, going out on the weekends with your buddies. It takes more than that. And that's kind of where I figured that out. I figured out you can't coast through training. You can't coast through games. You can't coast through life. You have to take everything as an opportunity, and you have to do your absolute best to get better. And that was the point where I realized this. And it was kind of from that moment on where everything I did in my life I did it 110%. And that's who I am as a person. Whereas, soccer's huge, and soccer's my first love, and it's my first priority, but there's more to it than just that. So I worked my tail off on the field, but also in every other facet of life. So when I had schoolwork, I always maintained 80s or 90s, and that kind of came from my parents. For those of you that don't know, my mom's a high school principal, and she drills me to get my stuff done. But it's kind of, you have to take everything as a chance to improve. And that's kind of what I did. So when I didn't make that team, I made sure that I never felt that again. And I didn't feel that again. From that point on, I went on trial to the Vancouver Whitecaps, and I actually made it. This was directly after I'd gone to this camp. It was a couple months after, and I made it to the Vancouver Whitecaps at 14. And I really contemplated going. I wanted to go. I thought, okay, this is another step that I wanted to take. This is an MLS academy. It's a good environment to be in. And then I didn't go because I wanted to chase bigger things in Europe. So I went on trials to West Bromwich Albion and Sheffield United. And I didn't make either of those 2 teams. Sheffield United, actually, on this trial, I got hurt. I had torn something in my hip flexor, so I only trained twice there, and then I'd flown home. But West Brom, I'd gone on trial there twice. And I was actually told by a man named Stephen Hopcroft, who was kind of the the head for recruitment for recruiting players. He basically told me when he had dropped my mom and I off at the hotel where we stayed at, he said, don't even bother unpacking your bags. You should be with us in the next couple months. And I was over the moon as a young footballer, to go play in Europe, to go play overseas in the Premier League, especially because West Brom was in the Premier League at that point in time. That was it. In my head, I had done it. I was going to be a professional footballer, or I was going to get a chance overseas. And I remember I got a call. It was before school. I was in grade 9 at this point. Yeah, I was in grade 9. And I'd got a call before I'd gone to school. And they said, I'm sorry, there was 4 out of 5 people that wanted you to come, and then 1 person that didn't. And so I didn't go. I didn't make it. And that was the most crushed I've ever felt as a soccer player. And the reason I'm telling you guys this is because I want you to understand the kind of mindset that I have, and it's a mindset that it takes. So that was my biggest upset in soccer ever. That was my biggest, I will call it, that was my biggest failure. I didn't show well enough. I didn't do enough to make the team. And as a grade 9, that's still a young age. That's a tender age. And most kids, wouldn't want to go to school that day or wouldn't want to do anything. I remember my parents and I talked about it for 15, 20 minutes. Okay, I didn't make it. That's great. I sulked for 15 minutes. I skipped first period math, grade 9 math, and then I went to school for the rest of the day. And that was it. I took 1 period of high school to get over that disappointment. And then you have to continue on. So no matter how many setbacks you face and no matter how crushed you are, you can't let it live with you. And yes, I still remember that. And yes, that's still a big moment in my life, but it's not something that holds me back. It's not something that bothers me. It's something that fuels me. It's something that I remember, okay, yeah, that's a failure, and you don't want to feel that again. So you can't hold on to it. As I said, it took me a period, which is 75 minutes. Okay, 75 minutes. I was sad about it for 75 minutes, but then it's time to get to school. Then it's time to go do everything else. Then it's time to go train that night. And that's how it is. So, and then about that time, I was fortunate enough for Whitecaps to invite me back for another trial. I went over my March break and went on trial back with Whitecaps again. This was when I was 16, and they invited me to join the academy. So once I joined the Whitecaps Academy, I joined in August, 2 August ago. And so I've been a Whitecaps player ever since then. And with being with the Whitecaps, I got another shot to go and make the Canadian national team, the U17 Canadian national team. They'd come and done camps with the 3 academy teams, the MLS academy teams, Montreal, Toronto, and Whitecaps. And they had come in and they had given me, or given all of us a shot to, show what we can do in front of them. And the first time they came out, I didn't play well. I didn't play well at all because it was the first 2 months of me actually have gone and moved to Vancouver. So they call something in Vancouver, they call it for the billet players, which I was a billet player, players that move from other parts of the country to go live there. They call it kind of a window where you can get, acclimatized to everything that's going on. So they say it takes about 6 months. And I walked in thinking, I don't need 6 months. I need 2 sessions and then I'll be ready to train. I'll be ready to play and I'll be just as, good or just as, ready as everybody else is. And that wasn't the case. It was 2 months. I didn't realize the toll that it would take of leaving my family, leaving my friends. And I didn't realize how big the sacrifice was until I was actually there. So the first time they came, they didn't like me. I thought there was no chance again. I thought I'd blown my shot again to get to the national team. And it wasn't until the second time they had come around, once I had gone through that 6-month window and I was acclimatized and I was ready to play. And at this point, one thing you guys have to understand, for my first season of U17 with the Whitecaps, I wasn't starting for the first 6.5 months. Oops, sorry about that. I wasn't playing for the first 6.5 months. Sorry, one moment, guys. Yeah, so I didn't play for the first 6.5 months. I was on the bench. I didn't have any chance to get in, and I didn't have a chance to actually play until my roommate actually at the time, and my roommate, his name was Dino, and we still stay in touch and we're still great friends. He was starting with another guy named Nathan, and Dino got sick. We were at Showcase, so we had 3 games in 5 days that we had to play, and he got sick. And I wasn't starting, and I was the 3rd choice center back, and they threw me in. And I played really well those 3 games. And that was an opportunity that I wouldn't have gotten unless, my roommate, my buddy Dino, had gotten sick. But it's kind of those opportunities where you don't get very often, but in the game of football, when you do get opportunities, you have to take them. And you have to be patient and you have to work hard to get to that point. Yeah, but it takes luck. And there's a degree of luck in, becoming a footballer and becoming where I am a professional footballer. And that was the kind of turning point for me as a Whitecap footballer when he got sick and I got those 3 games and I was able to play really, really well. And I was able to gain a starting spot. And I started for Whitecaps the rest of that season. I didn't come off the field since that showcase, which happened in December. The rest of the year, I didn't come off the field. So that had given me a great boost of confidence for when the national team came in the second time. And when they came in, I showed really well. And I was fortunate enough to make the final team for the Canadian under-17 men's Concacaf championship, which is the World Cup qualifiers. We played against the U.S. the first game and lost 3-2. We went up 2-0, went into halftime 2-0 up, and we're just over the moon. We thought we were going to take down the U.S., who were giants in terms of Concacaf football. We ended up losing the game 3-2. I ended up getting man of the match, but from that moment on, we didn't lose another game against the U.S. until we had met them, or we didn't lose another game the rest of that tournament until we met the U.S. again in the semifinals. We ended up losing the semifinals to the U.S. 4-0, and that's something that all of us, we still talk about. That's a chip on our shoulders that all of us that were involved in that game and involved in that team, we still carry. But losing to the U.S. in the way that we did the first time, we became angry. We knew we wanted to go to the World Cup. We did. It was the first time in, I believe, 13 or 17, I can't quite remember, that a Canadian men's team had gone to the World Cup. So we ended up going to the quarterfinals match against Costa Rica. And this is the qualifying match because the top 4 teams from Concacaf go to the World Cup. This was the qualifying match to go to the World Cup. We played them to a 1-1 draw, and the game went in the penalty shootouts. And the day before we played Costa Rica, we were training, and they went around asking, if the game goes into penalty shootouts, where does everybody want to shoot? I was asked, and I told them I want to shoot 5th. I said, I'll be wearing the captain's band for the game. And I was a captain throughout most of that tournament. My co-captain was Simon Coline, who's a teammate of mine from the Whitecaps. But I ended up captaining the team against Costa Rica, and they asked me, and I said I wanted to shoot 5th. So that's kind of the personality that I have. I enjoy the spotlight. I enjoy the high stress, high pressure moments. So they asked me to shoot 5th, and it came down to it. Our goalkeeper made an unreal save in their first shot, and it came down to it where I had the chance to score and to send us to the World Cup. And I did. I buried it, went to the bottom left, and I sent my team to the World Cup. So that was a lot of times, and I don't know if you guys have been watching The Last Dance, but this is a Michael Jordan documentary, and he had said something where it took him till he was already professional playing for the Chicago Bulls, and it took him to, I believe it was his 2nd or 3rd game of his first season, to actually gain the confidence that turned him into Michael Jordan. And I'm not comparing myself to Michael Jordan, so don't think that's what I'm doing. But that was Michael Jordan's moment, and that didn't come until he was already a professional player. He'd already made it in a lot of people's mind, but no, that's what made him Michael Jordan. And for me, scoring the penalty shot, that's not what made me me. There's still so much that has to happen for me to get to where I want to be. But that's the moment that really gave me the confidence to go on and continue to improve and to continue to get that professional contract. Because until that moment, the professional contract, it was there, and to become a professional footballer, yeah, there was a chance for it, but I didn't really have the real self-belief until I did that. And so I think my point in that is, for me, it took a moment of pure ecstasy, pure excitement, enjoyment. I'm sending my team to the World Cup. And I'm saying to you guys, don't wait for that moment. You don't need to. You need to believe in yourself all the time. You need to, if you want it, that's fine, but you need to believe that it's going to happen. You need to believe that you can do it, or else it won't happen. And I'm not saying if I hadn't scored that penalty shot, I wouldn't have become a professional. That's not the point I'm making. I'm just saying if you have that kind of self-belief, everything becomes easier. You become more confident. The game becomes more easy, more enjoyable. So just believe that no matter what you want to do, you can do it. So then once we had qualified for the World Cup, we had gone back we didn't have a lot of time before we actually had to go to the World Cup. So we all got sent back to our clubs, our respective clubs, to train. Then we went to the World Cup. And I've had a lot of great soccer moments, a lot of moments that I'll remember forever. But walking out against Brazil, we played Brazil in Brazil. we played Brazil in Brazil for the first game of the World Cup, and I was captain of the team. So Brazil is arguably the greatest soccer nation of all time. And to play against the U17 Brazilian national team that actually went on to win the tournament, by the way, to play them in their own backyard, that was the most amazing feeling I've ever felt on a soccer field. We played in front of 11,000 people. We ended up getting beat 4-1. And it's odd to say that sometimes when you lose 4-1 that you can say your center half had a great game, but I played very, very well. I played very, very well that game. And that kind of gave me the confidence to go and perform even better the rest of the World Cup. So that World Cup is kind of what springboarded me into getting that professional contract, the way my performances and the kind of confidence I carried after that. So I was allowed to play with the first team after every training session after the World Cup because of my performances. And then through training with the first team and then playing playing in the World Cup and then training with the first team, that's what gave me the professional contract. They realized that my body of work was enough to think that this kid might have a chance as a professional footballer and might have a chance as a career. So that's kind of how I've gotten here. So the big thing I kind of want all of you guys to take out of this is the life of a footballer is not easy. It's difficult and it sucks and it's glamorous. Sure. Yeah. I got to score against Costa Rica in the quarterfinal semi-team of the World Cup. I got tons of media for it. I know a lot of you guys got Instagram. I got tons of Instagram followers for it. It was great. And it's a great feeling. And to play in the World Cup was an unbelievable feeling, but it doesn't come without sacrifices. There's give and take to all of it. So when I had to leave all my friends when I left the city of Windsor. When I moved teams, I had to leave all my friends. And I'm not saying you have to move teams to be successful because that's not how it is. That was just the path and the route that I took because that's what made sense for me at the time. So I left my friends, family. I had a girlfriend at the time when I'd left. I'd left it all behind. I left it all in the city where I knew I could always come back to it. But I kind of went and I realized that you can't keep everything you have and then go and trace your dream. That's how it kind of worked for me. And then I kind of look back now and I realized that everything I sacrificed and everything I did, I would do it all again tomorrow. Right now, if you had to tell me I had to restart my entire career and leave all my friends and family again, I'd do it again right now in a heartbeat because what I love more than anything in this world is kicking a ball around. There's no parallel in this world to me than going out on a soccer field on a Sunday afternoon and lacing up against another team. There's no better feeling in the world to me. So everything that I've sacrificed and everything that, I've kind of left behind and, everything that I miss, all the normal high school experience, going to high school dances, having tons of friends and doing everything that, a lot of other people would do, everything that I've missed, it wasn't that big of a sacrifice looking back to it because it's what I love to do. So if you guys are going to take anything away from this, just take away that if you love what you do, that no matter what, the experiences and the joy, it'll all be worth it in the end. Even if you don't become a professional footballer or go to a Division I school, or even if you stop playing soccer at the age of 18 or whatever, if you love what you do and if you love what you did for that time, then all the sacrifices, everything where you had to get up for early morning practices, had to eat the right food, had to do the extra conditioning, it'll all be worth it because those memories they'll be way more important than everything else you've had to sacrifice. So thank you guys so much for listening to my story. And I think we're opening up to questions now, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, for sure. First of all, the story is amazing. I've been lucky enough to see you progress, not as closely as other coaches, but just from a soccer person in the community. And we're really proud of everything you've done. I watched that game against Brazil live on TV, and I say the same thing. I actually think the announcer highlighted you as kind of like being steadfast and being yourself. And for those of you who don't know Frankie, there is no time when he would give up on a game or give up on his team. And playing against an unbelievable U17 Brazil team, it was awesome to see you in that environment and thrive and really embrace it. So you talked a lot about different adversity and different moments and how driven you've been. What's the largest obstacle that you felt like you had to overcome?
There's a couple. The one I mentioned, not making the U15 Canadian national team, that was big. But that one was, for me, the way it made me feel was considerably smaller than not making, than not being invited to go be a player for West Brom. That was the biggest. But honestly, nothing has been as difficult as moving away from home. Nothing has been as difficult as that, because you can do whatever you want on the soccer field, and what people say, all your troubles go away on the field as long as you're playing. They do, they really do. But at the end of the day, I'm at the training facility for 5-6 hours a day. But after that, there's a lot of time left in the day. So there's a lot of time to, not be with your family. All you do is just schoolwork, because you're training most of the time. So you gotta stay on top of your studies. And my parents would fly to Vancouver and drag me home if my grades dropped. So, it's the biggest obstacle for me in my footballing career is trying to balance life off the field and life on the field. Life on the field is fine. And if you have a bad day at training, it's not a big deal, because you go and you'll do it again tomorrow. But it's, you have to figure out what you're doing off the field. So that doesn't get spoken about enough, is how big that is. So for me, what I do to fill my time is, I'll dive into my homework. I'll get all my homework done. I'm a self-taught guitarist, so I taught myself how to play guitar when I have time off the field, and that's kind of what I do. So you need to find a way, because it can't all just be soccer, soccer, soccer. Because I promise you, if it is with anything, you'll get sick of it. You have to enjoy the time that you have playing, but then at the end of the day, you also have to balance it with everything else. So that was my biggest challenge, finding a good balance between everything.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I think, can you kind of, and that's what you talked about, is that extra work on the side. I mean, you and I talked the other day about what your workout routine looks like now.
Mm-hmm.
When you talk about the extra work or the extra little bit that's required to be, a professional or to make a go at it, at the next level, can you give a little insight into what it took for you?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I'm a bit of a workaholic when it comes to football. We have a training routine right now, because we're in sort of off season, but we're still in season technically. So we have to keep physically fit. So we have 2 workouts a day. We have a gym session and a sort of fitness session that takes about an hour and a half to an hour and 45 minutes every day. But for me, what I'll do is I'll do that workout, and then I'll go do two more at the end of the day. So it takes a lot, and I'm not the only player doing this. Don't get me wrong, because all of us on the team, we talk, and it's not just me. So what it takes to be a professional footballer is you have to take practice seriously, you have to take your game seriously, and you have to do all the work that the coaches put in front of you to do, and you have to do it to the best of your ability. But once you've done that, there's considerably more work to do. So don't just think because you trained well that day that you're done. You're not done. There's so much more to it. There's the recovery aspect. You got to take care of your bodies. You got to take care of your mind. You can't, just only think about one thing. That's the kind of the off-field stuff I talked about. There's so much that you have to do besides just training with your team. You have to put in that extra work, or else forget it. And one of the biggest things for me was always something my dad told me, is you have to enjoy working hard. And if you enjoy what you do, and if you love what you do, and I love playing football, I love everything that comes with it. I love being tired after a session. Or I love when I go do a run and I'm just dripping in sweat afterwards, because I know it means I'm getting better. And it may not seem like it, but every little bit will add up, and it becomes, at one point, every little bit will increase into this, massive improvement over time. So there's so much work that can be done extra off the field, and after, training's done.
Awesome. No, I think that, paints it very clearly. You talked about your mom a little bit. You just brought up your dad. Can you kind of go into the role that family has played, in supporting you and what it means to
Yeah,
you?
for sure. My family has always been my biggest supporters and my biggest critics. My dad especially is always been there to tell me if I've done a great job, but he tells me when I sucked before. I remember so many car rides back from playing games at Ford Test Track, and my dad would just yell at me the whole car ride back and just tell me, this is what you did wrong, this is what you did wrong. But then as soon as he has told me what I've done wrong, he tells me everything I've done right as well. And he reminds me, and he only tells me the things I do wrong, not because he wants to yell at me. No, he's telling me because he knows I can do better. And my parents have never pushed me to do something. they've always supported me in everything I've done. And my dad, mom, and sister, they've supported me. Like, I'm so lucky in the way they've done that. But they never really pushed me, where my dad never said, okay, this is what we're going to do. It was never that. It was always, what do you want to do? How do you feel about this? And my parents were always, they were always behind me, pushing me on, but they were never pushing me in one direction or the other. And that was a great help. But the best help with my family always was, they were a safe space. If I didn't train well and I was upset about it, they would always be there to, lift me up. If I had a bad game, I would be told I had a bad game, and I knew everything I did wrong. They'd let me know again, but they'd make sure that I got out of bed the next day, because tomorrow's another day, and you got to go train again, because you got to make sure that game doesn't happen anymore. So my family's been nothing but supportive and helpful throughout my entire career.
Is there something that you could point to? You've overcome those setbacks, and I think sometimes those knock people down. And you said you were able to process, not making it to West Brom, and then, go to class.
Mm-hmm.
Is there, what do you think has helped your ability to be resilient, or what can you give it to people who maybe don't have that innate ability that you've built up to overcome adversity? Is there anything you can help those with? Because everybody's going to face adversity,
Sure, yeah.
and especially at a time like this, there's a lot of people are saying, I can't do this, I can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
How do you overcome something like that?
Yeah, for sure. And actually, it's something I never understood how to put into words until I actually made the U17 national team. And we had a phrase, we had all these posters around everywhere. And I won't bore you guys with what all of them said. I can't even remember all of them, but one big one they had was next task, on task, next task. So for me, I never got it until they kind of put it into that. And for me, it was, okay, so I have this task, I'm going to complete it. But once I've completed that task, it's not time to celebrate or rest, or it's, you can have a little grace period, but once you've completed it, or once the task is over, it's on to the next. So that was kind of my mentality, which I never understood how to put into words until then. So when I didn't make West Brom, it was, yeah, I was heartbroken and it sucked, but I realized, okay, it can suck and you can be as hurt as you want for a very short period of time, because you've got something else in front of you. And for me, what that was is I had grade 9 science I had to get to. And that's just how it is. It's on to the next thing. And I know a lot of people don't like school, and I know it's a weird comparison, but it comes with just taking everything you do seriously and doing everything you do to the best of your ability. And it may seem trivial or it may not make sense, but by working hard in everything you do, you build your ability to work hard in everything else. You build that kind of mental toughness. So that's kind of what I did over time. And, just once I'd finished something, or once I'd been knocked down, is okay, yeah, that sucks, but let's go figure out the next thing. What's the next thing I got to do?
It's awesome. And I think that's great advice. I like that. On task, next task. I like that. You mentioned you're a captain.
Mm-hmm.
So you've been a captain of every team you've been on for at least some point. What qualities of leadership, or what quality of leadership do you think are most important? What have you seen in other captains that you look up to? And, what do you think made yourself a captain?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've been on teams where I've been captain before, and I've been on other teams where I haven't been captain. And something I've noticed is everybody leads completely and totally differently. And I'm not going to sit here and say one way of leading is better than the next. I've had captains where on and off the field, they don't say anything, but they just work their tail off. They're all over the place. They're helping people if they get knocked down. They don't say a word, but you always know they're there, and they're there to help you. Whereas I'm the type of leader that loves talking. I love talking. I love organizing my team, and I'm kind of in a position where I can, playing as a center back, I get to see the whole field. So I love organizing and talking. And kind of the biggest thing I could give to anybody that wants to be a leader, or anybody that wants to be a captain, is you have to understand that everybody will react to things differently. One player is going to react to, being yelled at completely differently than somebody else is. One player needs to be yelled at. He needs to be, encouraged. He needs to know he's made a mistake, and he needs to know, or she needs to know that it needs better. Whereas other players, they need encouragement. They need to be told, listen, it's okay, focus on the next thing. It's not a big deal you messed up that pass, right? And it's kind of, you got to figure out what players react to what. And then you have to be a good captain and a good teammate and a good friend to everybody differently. And that's kind of your job as a captain. It's difficult, but it's something that you have to do.
Awesome. No, I think that's a great summary of leadership and being adaptable. Question, and I think this relates probably to you recently, and probably to your season upcoming when it happens. How do you handle nerves before a big match, or what tools do you have? How are you going to handle the first time, you step out and you play in front of an even larger crowd?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, nerves for me have always been a big thing. Nerves can do one of two things. They can either freeze you or they can fire you up. For me, I've always tried to, the nerves before a game, and I get nervous really bad. I'm one of those guys that before a game, I'm bouncing around the locker room, walking around. I don't sit still. I get nerves pretty bad. I think the biggest nerves I had were before the Brazil game, playing in front of 11,000, or before a game I had in Korea where I was playing a team in Korea called the Daejeon Citizens, where I played in front of 24, I believe it was, 24,000. I actually played, it was a World Cup stadium that we played in where Italy had actually played in that World Cup stadium before. So that was a crazy experience. But yeah, I get crazy nerves. And something I do, I know everybody does it differently. People listen to music, or people, certain people do different things. For me, what I do, and it's actually something we do with the first team quite a bit, it's called visualization. So I'll sit down in my stall, I'll focus on one point on the ground, and I'll visualize things that are going to happen in the match. I'll visualize making a pass, making a slide tackle, winning a head ball. And I'm nervous, but I don't feel it during that point in time. I actually just visualize myself in that moment doing that thing. That's what kind of helps me get over the nerves, because the nerves, they pump adrenaline into your system, so you feel like you're actually there when it happens. So then when you get out in the field and you start doing these things, it's obviously not going to be the way you imagined it in your head. But it's like you've already played a little mini game in your head, and you just, once you get out there, it's just excitement more than anything else.
That's awesome. So I'm going to go into a little bit. I think, like I said, Peter Langens, our director of soccer at Tecumseh, he had actually some Vardar footage of you.
Oh,
I
yeah?
kind of wanted to show some highlights from back in the day. Peter, I think if you can put that up, and then we kind of wanted to kind of ask what you've learned and how you've changed from being a center back.
Sure.
Second, you're just gonna pull it up.
You see my screen, Ryan?
Yeah, we all see it.
All right.
You remember this, Frankie?
Yeah, dude, I made this a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Back to you, Frankie and Ryan.
Awesome. I think so. That's a good one. So what do you? We've been working a lot of with some video study with our players, and I know video is a big part of what you have done with the youth national team and Vancouver. What qualities do you think are important, as a center back? And how have you grown? I wanted to show it was nice to have some clips of you, from youth. So what qualities do you think are important for a center back?
Yeah, for sure. Every center back's different, right? I saw in those videos, especially for my Vardar highlights, I was kind of I loved joining the attack. I still do. But in those videos, I was kind of, I was allowed to be a little bit more free when I played at Vardar. So I'd take the ball, dribble 2, 3, 4 guys, join the attack, hit lots of big diags and big switches. And I still have that about my game. But now I'm kind of more of a more traditional center back where, kind of more relaxed, get the ball, play the simple pass and play the big pass or, do the special thing once it's an option. So I think one of the big things for center backs is, and it's kind of something I was told when I was a younger player, is center backs, when you see game ratings, center backs don't need to be 9 game ratings or 10 out of 10 game ratings or score 3 goals, or they need to be 8s every game. You need to be solid every game. You need to hit your passes. And I know it sounds crazy, but you can't make mistakes. There's no room for mistakes as a center back, and you will make mistakes. And I've made big mistakes in games before. Don't get me wrong. But you need to be able to, do the simple things. You need to be able to do them well. So that's a big thing for center backs. You also need to be able to organize the guys in front of you. You're in a unique situation where you can see the entire field, and you need to make sure that the boys in front of you are sorted. So you need to have a great understanding of your game plan. You can't be a player as a center back where, you have only half an idea of the game plan. No, you need to understand it inside and out, and then you need to communicate that to your teammates in front of you if they don't, if they're not doing their job in that point in time. And there are a bunch of other things for a center back. You need to be good in 1v1 defending. In the modern game, center backs don't get in 1v1 defending situations as much. That's typically your guys in wide areas. But if you're in a 1v1 situation as a center back, you need to make sure you're clinical, because a lot of those times when you're in those situations, you'll be close to your goal. So you need to make sure that you're absolutely sure of your tackles. You need to be a good tackler. You need to be strong. And I'm not talking about physically strong. You need to just have a presence about you. So you need to be able to walk on the field, and maybe it's the way that you move the ball. Maybe it's the way that you win a head ball, or it's your voice. You need to know the other team, and your team needs to know you're there. So the confidence starts in a team, from what I've found, from your center backs. Your center backs need to radiate confidence throughout the rest of the team. So there's some pointers for center backs.
Awesome. Thank you. It's very insightful. And yeah, like you said, we've been working on positional profiling, so that definitely helps. Question I have to ask: have you played as yourself on FIFA yet?
I have, and I suck. I do not recommend it. I wouldn't even think about it, guys. I'm like 50, 58 rated or something. I don't know. The CPU option just dives into tackles. So if you guys play FIFA, he's just always out of position. Don't use me in FIFA. Don't bother. I actually have one of my buddies, my best friend Joey. He used me in FIFA, and he rated me up to like a 65 or something. But yeah, I opt against using me in FIFA. But hopefully in the next couple of years, my rating will go up a little bit, and I'll be a better player to use in FIFA.
Awesome. Vast every speaker. Do you have any regrets?
Any regret?
You're young. You're our youngest. So I hope the list isn't long.
Any regrets? Absolutely none. And even in the times I failed, I don't realize it in the moment, but you realize it, a year or two after, that you needed to fail in order to get to where you are now. So if West Brom had taken me, I wouldn't be where I am now. It's not to say I wouldn't be somewhere else, but I wouldn't be where I am now. If I didn't have all my failures, and if I didn't, if I didn't take the steps, if I didn't leave my family, leave my friends, if I didn't do all of that stuff, I wouldn't be where I am right now. And that's just the path that I took. So as of right now, I have no regrets. And as I said earlier, I'd do it all over again tomorrow if I could.
Awesome. That's awesome. Okay, some personal questions. What's your favorite song to play on the guitar?
Favorite song to play on the guitar? I don't know. I got a bunch of different ones. My favorite one's probably it's called "Dead in the Water" by Noel Gallagher. He's one of the two guys from Oasis, and I saw it in concert and had no idea what the song was until I'd seen him in concert. So I like playing that one. It's probably my favorite song playing guitar.
Awesome. Favorite stadium you played in?
Ooh, favorite stadium I've played in. Okay, it's not a stadium, but my favorite place I've ever played, I played in the Manchester United training grounds. That was my favorite place I've ever played. That was pretty cool. So I walked into the training halls, and there was pictures of Pogba, Rooney, Giggs, Beckham as I was walking to the training to go put my kid on. That was pretty surreal.
Awesome. If let me scroll here. I got flooded with questions. So yeah, keep them coming, guys. I'll try to sort them the best I can. What kind of music do you listen to?
I listen to everything. I'm pretty.
What gets you pumped, and what calms you down?
What gets me pumped? What gets me pumped? Yeah, I like to listen to alternative music. That's my go-to style of music. So I'll listen to some heavier alternative. I'll listen to Royal Blood, maybe Led Zeppelin. I'll listen to stuff like that. And then what calms me down is there's a song from a movie called Amelie. It's just piano, and I listen to it. It's a 2-minute, 6-second song. It's called Comme tu me donnes été. And I listen to it before every game I play. It just kind of calms my nerves right down. But once I listen to that like an hour and a half before game time, and I won't look at my phone until after the game.
Awesome. Most influential coach or coaches along the way, and why?
All my coaches have been influential in completely different ways. Starting with Coach Dimitri was my first real influencer, my first guy that really, pushed me on and wanted to see me succeed. And yeah, Coach Dimitri, he was the first coach where I had, and one of my favorite coaches, and I still see Coach every now and then. And he was as I said before, he was like a second dad to me. He was beyond helpful in everything I did both on and off the field. And he was always just a safe guy to go talk to. And I remember Coach Dimitri and I got into it once during a game. It was heated, and we got into it once, and I went to training the next day, and he pulled me aside and he talked to me and he gave me a hug, and it was just he was always there to help me, and he helped me out in everything. So he was a huge influencer in my life.
Who do you look up to as an idol, and who's your favorite soccer player? So this could be the same question or like same answer. It could be very different. So you can divide it as you want.
My favorite soccer player of all time is Fabio Cannavaro. He's my favorite of all time. He won the World Cup 2006 with Italy. I have a huge poster of him up in my room. It's almost life size. He was like 5'8", so I think it's almost life size in my room. And so he's my favorite soccer player of all time currently. I know I'm not the only guy to say this, but Virgil van Dijk, I just love watching him play. The guy's so smooth and big and strong. I just love watching him play. And then my idol, not necessarily my idol, but a big inspiration for me is actually my younger sister. She's the toughest human being I've ever met in my life, and she drives me nuts. Don't get me wrong, but the way that she attacks things and the way that she puts her head down and just refuses to be defeated is kind of a quality that you don't see in a lot of people nowadays. And it's just from my younger sister, who she's supposed to look up to me, and she might, but I look up to her in the way that she just attacks everything, and I've kind of tried to adopt that way of never being beaten, and that kind of mentality that she has.
That's awesome. I'm sure there's some unique dinner time arguments and arguments at home.
Oh, absolutely.
Knowing Ava well enough. It's funny that you brought her up, because my next question, you can definitely say that now that you signed a pro that you may be the best or close to the best center back in your family. But who's the best center mid in the family?
The best center mid in the family? My dad will have a different statement than I would. Yeah, my dad would definitely disagree with me anything I say here, so I'm going to leave it as I don't know if my dad and my sister are watching, but they can
yeah, exactly. They'll see. I'm sure they'll see the recording, or I'm sure Amelie will tell them. Yeah. Let me just make sure I got all the questions. If you guys have any last questions, go ahead and fire them in. But for right now, like I said, I don't want to take. You've been so gracious with your time. I know. I'm going to open it to you. What kind of last message do you have that you want to? I know you talk about a lot of belief, but I'll turn the floor over to you. I just want to say thank you, and what kind of last message do you want to leave everybody watching with?
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me, and thank you for taking the time out of your guys' day to listen to me. And the last thing I'll leave you guys with is something I kind of alluded to before is love what you do and put every last little bit of effort and ounce of energy you have into what you do, and enjoy it. It's the biggest thing in the world for me, and the biggest reason I've had success is because I enjoy working hard. I enjoy what I do, and I love playing football more than anything. So enjoy it. And a lot of you guys are younger, and don't take things too seriously. So love what you do, enjoy working hard, and don't take things too seriously, because right now football's not a job for you guys. It's enjoyment. It's a game. And at the center of all of it, of all the attention you see, all these guys that are making multi-millions of dollars, and at the end of the day, they're just boys playing a game. So and they're just boys and girls playing a game. So no matter who you are, just love what you do and enjoy it. Because football is a job. Like for me, it's my job, but it's still a game, and you have to treat it like a game forever, because that's what it is. So yeah, thank you guys so much for having me. And thank you. Yeah, I'd love to be able to do something like this in the future.
Awesome, Frankie. We hope for everyone that we can get back out on the field soon. And again, on behalf of Tecumseh Soccer Club and all the clubs, in Windsor, Essex County, we're all rooting for you. We're super proud of you. And you have a bright future ahead of you. So thank you for being such a good example for everyone. And we hope you and everybody else's family stay safe. Thank you again.
For sure. Yeah. Thank you guys so much. Everybody stay safe, and try your best to stay active during this period. Hopefully we'll be out of it soon. We can all get back out on the pitch and kick a ball around.
Thank you very much, Frankie. All right, everyone, take care. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.